The Athletic, David Lombardi. How are you, my friend?
Good. Just biking down the waterfront. So I just stopped, sat on a bench, looking at one of those nice little old school ferries they've got by the ferry building. And they're building skyscrapers on Treasure Island. That's something I noticed, but just right now I noticed not driving. It's going to look crazy out there.
I did not know that. But speaking of surprising things that are about to happen, when we go to our Red and Gold Summit next Tuesday, David, what will we be talking about with regard to Trey Lance? How he fit into the roster or how he fit into someone else's roster?
In all likelihood, how he fits into the 49ers roster, because you just look at the probabilities, and the probability says that there's not a trade market for him, at least one that the 49ers would be satisfied with right now. And quarterbacks are currency. The 49ers have shown us that they feel this way. We had a case study last year with Jimmy Garoppolo when they contorted themselves to make sure that he fit onto the roster throughout the entire 2022 calendar year. They wanted to maintain their option power, and at the cut down, so about a year before, just at this time last year is when the opportunity to re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo for the cheaper deal presented itself. Trey Lance is obviously a different situation with different variables, but the same overarching truth is in place, and that's that quarterbacks are currency. Quarterbacks are assets at the most important position, and the 49ers aren't just going to let them go for free. And if there is not a big return for Trey Lance, I just don't see where it would come from right now, one that would make the 49ers better this year. So that probably means getting a player this year in return for him. If that's not going to be the case, then the 49ers are tangibly better with Trey Lance on the roster than without him, because you saw this team run out of quarterbacks last year, so why not stock up at the most important position?
David, we know you've been at training camp, boots on the ground. How close did the competition for QB2 between Sam Darnold and Trey Lance look to you?
Early on, it was closer, but especially since the first preseason game started, just the way that Sam Darnold commands the game, commands the huddle, has a feel for the short game, which Trey Lance still really struggles with. I didn't think it was particularly close. In the red zone, a lot of these differences between quarterbacks really show up, and Brock Purdy threw a touchdown pass, I think, on like 36 or 37% of his red zone attempts. Sam Darnold on 33% of his red zone attempts, and Trey Lance was way behind. He was at like 16% of his red zone attempts. I get that that's a rudimentary stat, but it's just one that I think might help illustrate for people, what Kyle Shanahan is looking for as far as quarterback ability within the context of his system. And I don't think it was that close at all. I mean, the only evidence you really need is that this was decided before the last preseason game.
David Lombardi, The Athletic, with us here on Willard and Dibs. Styles is in for Dibs on 95.7 The Game. All right, David, if you play the percentages and Trey Lance is on the team, I would assume that means that Brandon Allen is cut. But I have a different way of asking the question, because Kyle said yesterday, if we can find a spot for Trey and his heart is in it, that tells me that maybe his heart is not into the idea of being QB3. Now, you get what you get and you don't get upset, but what about that concept, right? Is Trey up for being QB3 with the 49ers?
Well, listen, Trey hasn't earned anything in this league. Let's be serious about that right now. He's played 4 games, and it's not through a fault of his own that he has a lack of experience. It's injuries. But the National Football League is a meritocracy, and Trey Lance right now is third on the 49ers quarterback pecking order, and I'm not sure that he'd be much higher anywhere else. I mean, he just doesn't have enough experience, and he hasn't shown enough on tape to be somebody who can point and choose where he wants to go and have that job. It just doesn't work that way. I think that what Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were referring to was that Trey Lance was upset after they let him know that he lost the battle for quarterback 2, as any competitor would be. And then Lance, I mean, everything about Lance, the 49ers like his character, right? They like the way that he carries himself. There have been some very turbulent waters, but, through and through, Trey Lance, the person, has shined throughout all of this. So I think that the 49ers are very confident that he'll bounce back, come back to work after what would be a rough day for anybody. And that was the case on Wednesday. He was back in there today for the 49ers walkthrough, and it's going to be business as usual moving forward. The 49ers gave Trey Lance $34 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed, when they picked him at number 3. So, it works this way in any profession. The job gives you money, especially guaranteed money. You show up and you do the job, or at least that's the expectation. And I think that's the expectation that the 49ers have for Trey Lance. And, if he wants to make more money in his career, if he wants to further this to another contract, either with the 49ers or somewhere else, because it's really hard to chart the future, then he's just got to take the opportunity that's right in front of him. It's one step at a time for Trey Lance. And the next step is to be the 49ers QB3. Guess who was the 49ers QB3 to begin last season? It was Brock Purdy. So this is football. This is unpredictable. If you're on an NFL roster, you have an opportunity. There's a chance that something is going to break in your favor, and that's the way that Trey Lance has to view it.
David, we know the Niners dealt with something kind of similar to this last year with Jimmy G coming back. From what you've seen, how did the vibe seem with the Niners and Trey Lance? Does everybody seem okay? I mean, obviously you can only see so much, but the locker room, how were the vibes today?
Well, I wasn't there today. I was there yesterday. Today they didn't have practice, so today was just walkthrough. I mean, this is a business. This is a team. Everybody. Trey Lance, the 49ers and Trey Lance. It appears they mutually agreed for him to miss practice yesterday. He was upset after receiving that news, and that was what the 49ers came to. Today they were back out at walkthrough. From what I know, Trey Lance was back there, and from all my experience covering the team, covering the NFL, these guys are paid to be there. They're paid to do a job. The job is to work with their teammates as well as they possibly can toward a common goal. For the 49ers, that's obviously winning the Super Bowl this year, and it should continue along that path. I can't really speak for anything else, but that's the goal. And with a team with so many star players that are hungry to win a championship, I would think that the 49ers would stay on that track.
David, what do you think the plan is for the quarterbacks tomorrow night?
Well, they're going to start Purdy. It's the dress rehearsal. So they've game planned for the first time this preseason. Their dress rehearsal means that they're looking at this as a regular season game as far as preparation goes. The 49ers are actually happy that the Chargers run a 3-4 front because that's what the Steelers run. So the 49ers feel they can get some week 1 preparation in for their first team just by virtue of that. I would expect about 20 reps or so, maybe a little bit more, for the 49ers first team offense, including Brock Purdy. And I'd expect Sam Darnold to come in. And I think that second team might get about the same amount of reps with Sam Darnold. And then I think that you can give Trey Lance a really extended look and maybe give Brandon Allen some mop-up duty just to make sure that he stays sharp. But that's how I would expect it to be divided, probably in a similar fashion, like same order as the previous game, but with a longer stint for Brock Purdy and a shorter stint for Sam Darnold.
David, moving off of Trey Lance for a second here, Sam Darnold and his arm talent, don't tell me we're headed towards another QB controversy in the Bay Area.
It wouldn't be a 49ers season without a quarterback controversy. If Brock Purdy plays the way he did last year, though, there's not going to be a controversy. Controversies start when somebody slips up or somebody gets hurt. Sam Darnold does have an electric arm. There's no question about it. I mean, some of the throws that we've seen from him this preseason they've been really, really impressive. Starting off with the go ball to Ronnie Bell in Vegas, and then there was one to Daz Newsome, who the 49ers cut a couple days later, but that was against the Broncos, where Darnold went near side hash to opposite side boundary just with a flick of his wrist. I mean, this 49ers team is so intriguing because you've got not just one, but you have two number 3 overall picks in the QB room, and neither of those two guys is QB1. It's number 262 is QB1. I mean, just that sets itself up for a lot of storylines. And, the 49ers, it's better to have a quarterback controversy when all the quarterbacks are playing well than to not have one, because that means you have depth. And the 49ers certainly needed depth to make it to the NFC Championship game last year. And you know what? They needed even a little bit more depth because they ran out of it, and then they lost because of the QB injuries last year. So having multiple capable bodies at that position is definitely an asset. It is not a problem.
David Lombardi, The Athletic. You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Hey, David, are we getting close to Nick Bosa might not play week 1? conversations? What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, I was joking around yesterday that when all this Lance stuff was happening after the 49ers had named Darnold QB2, I said that now would be a perfect time for Nick Bosa to sign. The 49ers would certainly love that so that people's focus would be taken in another direction. But, yes, I mean, the final preseason game is upon us. Nick Bosa hasn't signed yet. So very, very naturally, all attention is going to shift toward that, especially now that QB2 has been resolved. So especially after the roster cut down on Tuesday, people aren't going to have anything else to talk about but Nick Bosa. So you can expect the media pressure cooker to intensify at that point. And, I do think that there is some significance to getting Nick Bosa into the building, a little bit ahead of the regular season so he could run through some practices so he's not just going cold turkey. I'm sure he's going to come in fantastic condition because he's got that compound built for him and his brother out in South Florida, and he works out religiously. But there's something to be said about football shape, about building the callus for the season that John Lynch has alluded to. So I get why the 49ers are a little bit antsy here. They haven't had a holdout last this long under this regime, and people are really going to start freaking out about this here in a couple days because the distractions are soon to run dry after that 53-man roster cut down.
Yeah, that's well said. Hey, David, thanks for coming on, man. That was great stuff.